Mods. No, not the ones on Reddit, not the ones on Discord either, but the ones for video games. Thought-provoking intro out of the way, I wanted to talk about Entropy Zero Uprising, a mod of Entropy Zero, which itself is a mod of Half-Life 2, a nearly 20-year-old game. You may have already heard of Entropy Zero, but if you haven't, the mods by Breadman put you into the shoes of a Metro cop in the Half-Life 2 universe. And if you haven't heard of Half-Life 2, then I don't know what to tell you. Uprising draws inspiration from Entropy Zero, but decides to place you at the heart of City 17 instead, while the original Entropy Zero took place in City 10 way before the events of Half-Life 2. And I know, that's a lot of facts at you quick, but bear with me. Before getting into it, I wanted to say I appreciate it if you decide to watch this video. It's very different from anything else I've done, and it might suck cheeks, but I wanted to try it out anyway. I also wanted to say that this is an analysis, and it does include spoilers, so if you haven't played the game yet, I very much recommend you do that first. But don't worry if you don't want to, I'll go through the story in this video anyway. Your very first NPC interaction, apart from watching a guy get sent back to the lobby in an alleyway, is asking a civilian to pick up a can. You can tell straight away that you haven't touched any grass in a long while, and that the character you play as has very much immersed himself into being a Metro cop. The devs make very good use of these first few NPC interactions, as well as the Strider, to give you a sense of order, except they're baiting you, cause that's not what the game is about. This first chapter has you fighting groups of rebels through the unusual streets of City 17, your goal being to take out as many of them as you possibly can. Just pretend you didn't see that. As a side note, the streets of City 17 are a lot more brutal than they were in Half-Life 2. This could just be chalked up to the developer's adaptation, but that sort of thinking would make this video 10 seconds instead of a little bit more than that. Instead, perhaps this could be the Uprising seen through the Combine's perspective, since in Half-Life 2 we're only looking through Gordon's lenses. As for which may be accurate, I'll just say that Entropy Zero Uprising we're watching a playback of the events, while in Half-Life 2 we solely rely on Gordon's experience at the time. You can interpret that whichever way you want to. One other thing, the game highly encourages exploration, especially if you're planning on playing it on hard mode like I did. Wait, hold on, don't type skill issue in the comments just yet, okay, just hear me out. So throughout the game, you can find these slightly hidden supply stashes. Sometimes the game will even offer you alternative paths, making it slightly easier or harder depending on whichever you choose. While not incredibly significant as a whole, it just adds that other layer of gameplay, which I'm sure many of us can appreciate. Now, back to the game. At some point you come across these other Metro cops, but don't get your hopes up because they die almost instantly. To progress, you have to turn on the sprinkler system to put out the fire blocking your way, and by the time you're back, these armed to the teeth soldiers were already taken out by your local bingo club, who even set up the turret on the dude's back. After taking them out and traversing probably the least populated route on the New York subway system, you realize why they call them Metro Cops, but also stumble upon the first Combine outpost of the game. Here, you're briefed on your first mission, taking down the rebel-controlled force field and retaking this apartment block. The pharmacy where the force field generator is located is defended by a troop of rebels, aided by a Vortigaunt who clearly doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Shutting off the force field allows you and the troop of Combine to raid the apartments, the first large-scale battle in the game. After that, the first file in this replay ends and you get to watch an actual human memory from what I assume is the character's past at the point where he was considering joining the Combine.
There has to be another way.
At this point, we don't know what his reasoning was, nor can we really say for sure by the end, since this is one of the very few times in the game where the character is shown or discussed at all. There's actually a bunch of videos about the Combines, like this one by Skyryon, which outlined why the civilians chose to join civil protection in the first place. I highly recommend it if you're interested in how the Combine actually works, or you just have some more time to kill after finishing this video. After the whole memory sequence, you're thrust into the game's second chapter, recording You're woken up by this guy who offers you a refreshment, except Get trolled, idiot. You just got trapped into the painted world of Ariamis. These soda cans are pretty crucial in determining which ending you can get, but I'll talk more about that at the end. There's this random couch cutscene when you drink the soda. I'm not sure exactly what it means. It might as well be a PSA about drinking. Maybe you could boost my engagement by commenting down below what you think this means. Oh yeah, your shield is also increased by 15. Throughout the game, your maximum shield value will change, perhaps reflecting your status in the Combine, as later on you get demoted and your shield is greatly decreased. Soda cans, on the other hand, have the opposite effect of boosting your shield, probably referencing the developer's dependence on energy drinks while developing the mod. This random guy then pulls you into a hallway to assign you your next task. You have to rescue a group of Metro cops who have been pinned down by rebels and are struggling to survive. He also tells us that the civilians have started employing more advanced combat tactics. This might not seem so significant, but then again, the whole point of this video is to waste your time, so instead, it shows that as opposed to the way we're portrayed in Half-Life 2, Civil Protection were very aware of their enemy's strength, and to a certain extent were themselves humans, just like the rebels, afraid of what the other side might do. This is the actual start of the second chapter. Reinforcements. The 3 Metro Cops you rescue, quick editors know these are not actually the Metro Cops you rescue, these are just the Metro Cops you team up with. This is what I get for trying to make a video essay. You end up having a lifespan longer than the average 10 seconds and help you fight further into the city. I also think they're invincible because this guy is required to unlock a door a bit further on, but I haven't tested that. Your destination is this fortification where a squad leader will ask you to help him defend some data they've collected. You'll have to fight through the world's most peaceful horde of Black Friday shoppers to probably the nastiest soundtrack of 2023. You also have to protect the operator, who's probably tweeting about how Starfield should have been a PS5 exclusive instead, but at the end of it he tells you he couldn't send whatever data he had anyway because he exceeded the 800 tweet limit already, so he gives it to you instead and tells you to find another guy who probably paid for Twitter Blue. Alone, you have to make your way to this nexus to deliver the data. Luckily, I took this red barrel with me, which I used in the very next encounter, but it must have been filled with fart gas because it didn't do anything. After taking a few seconds to admire the Xbox Series Sigma, I came across this gate locked by a combination. Now the intended way of solving it is by looking around this zone to find the other 2 segments, but because I've played at least one other video game before in my life, I ended up just brute forcing it. In an unexpected twist, this billboard Vortigaunt informs you that aliens are not real after all, and sends in a squad to make sure you won't be able to prove otherwise. Jokes aside, I'm not exactly sure why a gang of Vortigaunts would wait to ambush you here, but it's probably tied to the information in the data packet you're carrying, which we'll learn more about later on. The way forward is defended by a turret, but if you go back down this alleyway, you'll come across another one of those secret supply stashes. Pretty neat after I wasted all my health and ammo trying to get to it. Another interesting detail in this zone is a letter between rebel members saying how the war is essentially lost and they're going to run away to some other hideout. It also makes reference to a CP murdering his way through this sector, which probably refers to you. On that same wall, if you move a metal sheet out of the way, you can actually break into the apartment where the rest of the resistance members are still hiding out. They offer you some supplies, hoping you'd spare them, showing just how vulnerable and scared these rebels are. It's actually one of the most unique supply stashes I've seen in any video game. Getting back on track, the turret section forces you to make use of the environment around you for cover, reminding me of that prison escape sequence in Uncharted 4. You can't fight back, you have to slowly progress until you eventually make it to this button, which... well, I'm not sure what it did, but it seems it made the gunner leave the building entirely, so it probably set off the world's biggest whoopee cushion, judging by the noise. This zone actually links back to an earlier one, the one with the little section puzzle. It's a simple aspect that I always appreciate because it makes the world feel just that little bit more real. Well, as long as you can ignore the alien structures and the Mission Impossible laser rooms. Eventually, you finally make it to that Combine Nexus you were tasked to find, and sure enough...
you seem to be the most competent unit in this sector. Well, if you don't consider me, of course.
This is the hereditary we were looking for. We also get a little bit more information about ourselves, more specifically, our codename. Yep, that's it. Once again, clutching at straws, you can tell how indoctrinated our character is, sticking to that same surgical phraseology of the Combine, despite the guy we are talking to introducing himself pretty casually as Beck. This is also going to be what I'm going to be referring to him as for the rest of this video. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of clear character development through this game. Hopefully, they introduce some more in the next iteration of the story, similarly to how Entropy 02 did compared to the original. After giving back the data packet, he invites you to join his mission in taking down a rebel outpost on the outskirts of City 17. You are split up in 3 groups and have to make your way to a dispatch point together with your squad. This new mechanic is also introduced where you can jump on a teammate's back to get over ledges. It's not really used that often, but it's a neat little feature nevertheless. You can also interact with the console, which contacts the squad leader and gives you some deep lore.
You're not at the landing zone yet. Why did you contact me?
You traverse through the obligatory video game sewers section, you look for batteries, another necessary segment present in both Half-Life 2 and Entropy 0, you do some co-op, and finally you follow the Strider to the pickup location. Similar to the generator fight in Fall of Freeman, the landing zone is a king of the hill shootout against a few waves of enemies until the dropship shows up to pick you and whoever this other guy is. Quick advice, before going into the dropship, collect whatever supplies you can find around because it all transfers to the next chapter and you do take some damage right out the gate. We also get to watch another cutscene, this time after we've joined the Combine, going back to what appears to be that same apartment from the first cutscene. Again, not 100% sure what this is supposed to insinuate, but then again, how can we be? But looking up code 100 on the wiki, yeah, that's not a lot to go on. My theory would be that we went on a rampage similar to the one at the beginning of Half-Life 2, in the same apartment block that we lived in before, showing us how the character has essentially embraced their part in the Combine completely, with little in the way of remorse. The third chapter of the game, Hard War, takes place in the industrial area where the rebel outpost you've been briefed on is located. Your connection to the Combine has been severed by something the rebels are doing, so you can't call for reinforcements. And that guy that came with you? Yeah, he had to leave the game. There's also another soda you can pick up here. It will increase your shield by an astonishing 40, as well as remind you of your couch phobia. Oh, and this letter on the wall? It's about some experiment with contaminated water, but I'm not sure how it ties into anything so far. The rebels here have acquired 2 functional APCs. 2. Remember that for later. One of them you'll come across right at the beginning of the chapter. Unfortunately, you can't fight it yet, but it does fire some missiles at you to let you know it's hostile, so watch out. Just in case you can't read. Also, zombies are back. Yeah, now that you're out of Combine-controlled area, these guys become the main enemy type.
Oh, dumbass.
Fast zombies are also here. They're the biggest threat of this region. Also, the poison zombies. By the way, I looked up the name of these zombies on the wiki. This is literally what they are called. I'm not just pulling these names out of my ass. After making your way through a train tunnel, you come up to another one of these toxic lakes. The zombies living here are not too happy about that because you just broke the 4th Amendment. So you have to demonstrate the 2nd Amendment while you wait for this door to open so you can get out. Outside, you meet up with a metro cop who tells you he's not doing too good. There's a medkit under this bucket though, and giving it to him will cure whatever illness he's dealing with. This guy is Beck, you know, the mission leader. At least based on his voice lines and the subtitle color, I guess. You will team up with him for the rest of the chapter, but don't worry, unlike the other Metro cops, he does pull his own weight. A little further on, some funny guy drops a container in your path, forcing you to go into this building where you end up fighting a bunch of zombies and rebels so you can lift the container back up. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this was probably the fight I most struggled with. There's this spam of zombies in this one room which you have to control while rebels shoot at you from above. Fortunately, it's followed by a very neat puzzle where you have to deploy a train so you can chase that rebel APC from earlier. You even get to ride the train, which, if you're 7, it's the most exciting thing so far. There's also these combine zombies that deploy manhacks, a cool variation to the grenade zombies you see in Half-Life 2. Beck remarks that he recognizes one of them, implying that perhaps they were part of your mission but were unfortunately overwhelmed by headcrabs. You can even see the dropship they crash landed on at the same building. I really like this type of contextual storytelling. It's so subtle that I didn't even realize it while playing the game the first time. But if you do figure it out, it's really rewarding, and that's that little extra that makes a good story an even better one. Further on, you'll see 2 more dropships hovering above you, one of which is shot down by the Rebel APC. Which, by the way, I call bullshit on, because those things were rocket-dodging pieces of shit in Half-Life 2. Anyway, they're the reinforcements, but they won't be able to land until you take the APC out. I didn't find this fight that fun. You have to make use of explosive barrels to take it out, but there's a limited number of them, and on top of that, the turret drains your health faster than Badlands chugs. There's supply boxes scattered around the arena, but the health you get from them will only help you tank 1 or 2 more hits. I was able to take it out using those SMG grenades. I think they're more reliable than trying to time the red barrels. The dropship that wasn't shot down lands after you take out the APC, deploying a couple of Metro cops to help you out through the next zone. I'm not exactly sure why they're not deploying any Combine soldiers to take out the Rebel outpost, although in Half-Life 2 you do fight civil protection in the canals in Water Hazard, which is the same region you're in right now, so in that regard the mod is accurate. One of the Metro cops makes reference to that data packet from earlier. I think this is the operator we defended in Chapter 2, his subtitle color matches at least. He says him and his squad were chasing Gordon, but he was the only one that survived. This matches with Water Hazard in Half-Life 2, giving us some crucial information on the timeline. We do get a little more exposition about the data package though, apparently containing information on the Rebel outpost as well as something we might have that the Rebels want. First thing that came to mind was the Borealis, you know, that ship from Half-Life 2, but that's something that Aperture has that the Combine wants, so that doesn't really work. After surviving another standoff against more zombies than the whole Walking Dead franchise, we make it into the Rebel hideout in the 4th chapter of the game, Payday. Payoff. The plan is to sneak in and figure out what's been jamming the Combine communications this entire time. Now if you ask me, stealth sections are probably the worst thing in gaming, and I'm convinced my game was broken because I just couldn't jump into this vent. Let me in the vent! I ended up dropping stealth altogether and blew everyone up, triggering every single alarm on the continent. You can actually sneak your way past everyone and kill the person who canonically triggers the alarm, but it will go off anyway because this section hates your living guts. There's also a guy whistling every time you redo it, and I guarantee the devs put him in here just to fuck with you. Oh yeah, and this is that second APC I mentioned, keep that in mind. You regroup with Beck and he tells you that the antenna the rebels are using to scramble your comms is actually in the smokestack, and the only way to stop it is by blowing it up. You also find some guy's notes on the computer with some more of that sweet contextual storytelling, outlining all the things you've done so far, but take a look at that entry in particular. Anyway, climbing the antenna tower is something straight out of Only Up by how janky the whole thing feels, but I really liked it. After tossing a grenade at the top, you climb back down to take in the rewards of your labor.
Protection team member. Your reward is now non-mechanical reproduction stimulation.
Yeah, remember that train mentioned in those notes? Well, stopping it is your next objective since it carries heavy weaponry to help the rebels take City 17. Initially, it looks like the mission's gonna be a short one because you find the weapons within 2 minutes, but nope! Beck gets his ass strapped inside the container, and before you and the rest of the group can get to him, the train heads out. Luckily, you can use this APC that's just chilling here. I don't think this is a Rebel APC, it doesn't have that weird paint on it, so I really don't know where it came from, but oh well. Like the one in Entropy 02, it's equipped with those infinite turrets and regenerating rocket launcher. You can also get out to explore different points of interest, similar to the Highway 17 chapter in Half-Life 2. But you're mainly just gonna cower inside of it, mowing down zombies since you're a coward, and you auto-pick up any supplies you run over anyway. At some point you'll come up to another one of those standoffs where you wait for a gate to open. You know, there's actually quite a few of these sections now that I think about it. The whole APC section is pretty short, at only around 7 minutes out of the 4 hours it took me to finish the game. It culminates in an epic battle with... wait, is that a third Rebel APC? No. Hold on. I told you there were only 2, and I wouldn't lie to you. Look at the paint on the side of it. It's the same paint as the one in the stealth section. This also implies that whichever rebels are still alive were able to sneak it from right under your nose and load it onto the train after the train departed. The situation does make a little more sense if you consider that the devs probably didn't expect you to kill your way through that sequence though. In the end, it doesn't matter what Houdini magic trick they pulled here, you'll still have to defeat the APC before you can do anything about stopping the train. There's not a lot to say about the fight, it's mostly just a missile spam on both sides. The train also stopped for whatever reason, probably so you can advance the story afterwards. Once you do take it out, your Metrocop buddy stuck in the container comes up with the brilliant idea of driving into the tunnel in front of the train to flip some lever. Unfortunately for you, the train driver isn't a Cocoa Melon kid, so he takes advantage of the opportunity to run you over. It's not the end of it though, it also turns out there's another incoming train on the same rail as the rebel one. At first, I thought this had to be the end. How would you survive a thing like that? But not only do you survive, it turns out every other person on the train did too, including Beck. He tries calling for help, but the rebels slap him so hard he gets sent into the next chapter. The 5th and last chapter, Retaliation, has you return to City 17 at night and introduces you to another key character, Bloody. And with a name like that, you better bet this guy's British. He says he came here looking for a signal from 2810, the container guy, which probably means his distress call did work. Needless to say, Beck is not here. He was kidnapped by the rebels earlier. You know, the ones who smacked him. This whole chapter takes place in the dark, and unfortunately in the train crash, your night vision broke, so if you're like me, you can spam that F key however much you want, it's not gonna work. The game also thinks you got hit so hard you forgot your motor functions. You can find a gun on this dead Metro cop if you go down this staircase, but the way forwards is up, leading you to the surface. There's another one of these alternating paths I mentioned here. You can enter either of 2 ways, the second one being round the back. You can use this to your advantage, since the guy you're with will stick to that wall, allowing you to essentially attack from both sides. This would be pretty cool if it wasn't for just a couple of zombies. Coming up to this computer, Bloody will pull up a live leaks montage of Beck's kidnapping, allowing you to find out exactly where he was taken, which turns out to be a base of operations for the Resistance inside a nearby mall. Bloody says they've been struggling with this outpost for some time and considers the rescue impossible. He also calls you out on your failure to stop the train, but yeah, okay buddy, from where I was standing, the train looked pretty damn stopped, alright? Nevertheless, he leads you into this courtyard he calls safety, but it's actually littered with more zombie Metro cops that will have you mashing the quick save keys since you probably won't have more than 6 HP at the time. After clearing the courtyard, however, you finally make it to the squad's hideout. You also find out Bloody was assigned as leader since the Combine is misogynistic and the previous one turned out to be a woman. You get a moment to resupply, as well as have some conversations that would make Oblivion jealous, before getting briefed on your last mission, retaking the mall. While you and Bloody sneak in to save Beck, another group will break into the mall with a Strider and an APC. Yep, that's pretty much it. A few minutes later, you'll also come across the last can of existential soda, and cracking it open will trigger yet another cutscene, this time of us in a dark room. This is probably a representation of how we've lost our humanity by joining the Combine, but it could also be because we forgot to pay our electricity bill. It does also increase your shield by 40. Editing this, I also just noticed that this is the same apartment as the one in the other cutscenes, and Bloody does remark this, but our character either pretends or does not recognize it. To get to the mall, you'll first have to navigate through a minefield and take out some rebels while Bloody yells something from the top of a building. A flare eventually shoots off, signaling the other group's attack, and the distraction you need to sneak into the room where Beck is being held.
I can provide you with whatever you need. Clearances, access codes, classified information, whatever. As long as you don't hurt me.
Ignoring whatever that was, you climb into this vent and plan your next move. At first, I thought you could just break in and start shooting, but that's just gonna cause them to shoot their captive. Instead, if you shoot them from inside the vent, they won't know what to do, allowing you to take all of them out the imposter way. Don't expect any sort of thanks though, instead you'll have to listen to their Discord conversation about who's the most edgy before dropping straight into the heart of the mall. The mall fight checks all the boxes for the last fight of a video game, minus the sponge enemy giving you a monologue about society. It's just you against the rebels, and it really feels like a well-balanced shootout. Not a walk in the park, but not a frustrating last stand either. I'm pretty sure the characters also make a quick reference to Entropy Zero, mentioning a 36, who sounds a lot like 3650, the character you play as in the original mods. I'm not exactly sure how they would have come across each other, since Uprising takes place in City 17 while neither of the Entropy Zero games gets anywhere near it, but since 3650 did become a master template in Entropy Zero, that does tie the two universes together. After taking out the last few rebels, you remember how I said there was no monologue? All jokes aside, I think this dialogue really outlines how these Metro cops feel. There's probably a lot of uncertainty working for the Combine, since we know it handles its soldiers like disposable resources, and it seems they know that too. The only choice that they have, and probably what Bloody refers to, is to become an enhanced soldier, but at that point, all of their humanity would have been stripped from them anyway. In this regard, it's all the same to him whether he dies in combat or becomes a valuable enough asset to the Combine, in which case he also dies to some extent. The last twist of the story comes in the form of an ambush from what looked like other Metro cops, but take a closer look. Yeah, no, those are not regular CPs, their eyes are piss yellow. These are in fact defectors, members of the Combine who turn to the side of the Resistance. You can tell because after taking all of them out, you're charged with killing Anis, meaning they were still networked to the Combine. You go to take a look at the cameras, either because the new Five Nights at Freddy's game dropped or to find the rest of the rebels, and sure enough, there's a couple of them in a room nearby. Beck and Bloody leave you to go take them out, except it turns out I lied about the last twist. The camera feed was fake, and you get absolutely owned by those same three Metro cops. The Combine dismisses you, i.e. leaves you to die, and that's that. Except, of course, like any self-respecting Marvel movie, there is a post-credit scene, where Beck tells you that your work isn't quite done yet. It's mainly there just to make you aware that they're working on a sequel. However, I'm not sure if we'll play as the same character. Right before the credits end, you can hear Bloody laugh, at least judging by the subtitles, but who knows. This could also mean that Bloody was a traitor the entire time, and an accomplice to the rebels that killed you. This would explain why he wasn't so concerned about dying, potentially because he knew the rebels wouldn't shoot at him, but that's just a game theory. In terms of endings, this video I found shows you 3 of them, the first being the one I just talked about, also seen as the true ending. The other 2 are variations of each other, where you betray the Combine by not drinking any of the soda they offer you and killing Bloody. As for when this takes place, I think it's right at the beginning of Half-Life 2, since the Combine would probably see the first day of the Uprising as the one civilians helped Gordon Freeman escape City 17. This is supported by that one reference to water hazard, as well as the fact that the Citadel is still standing by the end. I really like the flexibility in gameplay, the stealth sequence, which you can circumvent entirely if you can take out the turrets quick enough, and the various battles and standoffs. There were also some other encounters that required more complex problem solving, but these will vary depending on each person's playstyle. You could say this is more of a Half-Life 2 thing, and mostly thanks to the physics engine, but you do have to admit that the devs used every tool at their disposal making this game. Entropy Zero Uprising is a mod that doesn't feel like a mod. While to me the original Entropy Zero felt sort of empty, with very little in the way of story, Uprising has a whole lot of it, and it ties really well into the Half-Life 2 universe as a whole. Add to that all of the unique puzzles, the well thought out level design and the voice acting, and you've got a solid self-standing game. Sure, it's on the short side, but it's a game, and I really can't wait for episode 2. I'm sure they'll outdo themselves again, much like the Entropy Zero team did with its sequel, and it's amazing that after almost 2 decades, we're still getting these outstanding mods to Half-Life 2. To wrap up, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's definitely very different to anything else I've done on this channel, but I really enjoyed it. That being said, writing this script did take quite some time and effort, and I'm sure editing the video is gonna be another beast in itself, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. All that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.